when you research and you go back through all this stuff, you see that it's regurgitations upon regurgitations with no proof and evidence for the original thought or theory. Then it gets put into the zeitgeist and into the consciousness of everybody, and then everyone believes it, and then everyone propagates it, and everyone pushes it out there like it's real. They talk about these stories of like Saint Germain and Jesus and the 33 Galactic Federation of Light and Van Tassel in the early 50s that was channeling Ashtar. And then he came out and said that all the other people that were channeling Ashtar that he created was wrong and fake. And then Ashtar brought on a life of its own in the early 90s through the internet. And then they created a set list of rules of people to follow by to channel Ashtar, to have their actual channeling seen as valid. It's the same thing over and over again, and predictions that never come true. Next week, the extraterrestrials are going to land.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? I've got a couple of GMO friends behind me. They ate way too many Cheetos. They're looking for revenge. And Mr. Ryder Lee, raised by giants, great to see you. How the heck are you?
Thanks for having me on, Rex. I'm ready to dig into this, and this is going to make a lot of people upset, and the trolls are going to come out today, Rex. They're coming out.
so let's do what we can to not feed the trolls as much, okay? Like they need to eat a little bit, but let's don't give them a gourmet buffet here. First of all, I've got to applaud you for yesterday. You left a comment in the comment section about how the ETs weren't real. And we're talking right now, folks, about the two supposed 1,000-year-old alien corpses that were displayed during a meeting that the parts of the Mexican government was at, as well as Graves from the U.S. military. He was invited out there. And it appeared to me that he was actually quite upset that he was sent out there, because he felt like that was a complete reversal of the work that they were doing. At least that was in the tweet that I read, basically, and not per verbatim. But it's when I saw that at first, I looked at that and I thought, wow, this is really cool. So I did a podcast on it, and I'm like, these could be, they look quite a bit like the some of the beings that are described in the Hopi prophecies and different prophecies. And I do remember several years ago, there was that 3-fingered alien mummy from Peru, supposedly, that got a bunch of traction, and then it kind of withered away. And I didn't go deep into the research on that, but I did hear differing stories. Like, there's one side saying, oh, it's an ET. And then the other side is it was fabricated. It was alien bones, or not alien bones, animal bones disguised as alien. And so now I'm going to myself, okay, so what is the real truth here? Where do we get the actual DNA data? Who does the analysis? And how do we get somebody that can read the analysis of the data? And then why would they have that public stunt just yesterday or whatever, a couple of days ago? Like, what's up? Why would they even allow that? If there was such disinformation before that was shown to the light, like, oh, this is totally disinformation, why would they use those same bodies and allow them to be displayed again? It just seems,
from my understanding, Rex, this was like an exhibition. This was like an exhibition in Mexico. It wasn't, because the Mexican Congress, I had a gentleman on from Mexico on my show yesterday that talked all about this, and he knows all about it. And so the Mexican government congressional hearings are completely different than American congressional hearings. And from my understanding, they're not required to be under oath in Mexico. It's a symbolic under oath. It's a symbolic taking of the oath, right? It's not, it's an exhibition. And Jaime Maussan has been trying to propagate these supposed extraterrestrial bodies since 2017. This isn't anything new. It's a very old thing that was disproven back in 2018. The Peruvian government has stated that they're fake and that they're made from animal bones and deceased ancient Peruvian humans, and like the Maria mummy that's in the Smithsonian. That one is a complete fabrication. It was actually altered, and the head was taken from an actual real elongated skull and then was put on to a altered fake body, and that was presented as being real too. So this is nothing new. People have been doing this for a really long time. There was a really famous hoaxer on the internet back 5 to 6 years ago that was making fake elongated skulls that everybody was sharing around the internet. That was his art projects that he was making out of animal bones. And to your question about the DNA, Jaime only let certain people do the DNA testing, right? And the people that he paid to do the DNA testing on these supposed extraterrestrial mummies are the ones that came back and said that there was a percentage of the DNA that wasn't known. Now, other people that's come in that he didn't pay off to do it said that it was Homo sapien DNA. So there's a lot of things that's going on with this. First, we have this Mexican congressional hearing that isn't really a real congressional hearing. It's kind of like an exhibition where he rolled out these fake extraterrestrial bodies that it was proven to be fake back in 2018 whenever he first started bringing them out. That was made with animal bone, ancient Peruvian dug up bodies, and elongated skulls, real elongated skulls. And then you have the whole faking of this entire thing. And your question is really interesting. Why would they do that? And I was talking to this gentleman from Mexico that I had on my show yesterday, and he was telling me that it's entertainment, that they're doing it as entertainment. And I think of that too. I'm like, well, what news do we ever really get from Mexico? Right? When do we ever hear anything that's going on in Mexico besides when Trump was in office and he was up there and, well, build the wall, you know what I mean? And then everyone gets in an uproar. You know, we don't really hear any media information coming out of Mexico. And I think that this was a stunt on the back of the U.S. congressional hearing with David Grush up there saying that, which when you dig into David Grush's background, it turns out that he was a mental patient, that he was locked up in a psych ward in 2018 for suicidal tendencies and substance abuse issues. So they let a mental patient get up there and testify in front of Congress with no proof to any of his claims, with no evidence, just more stories. That's all David Grush has, is more stories.
You know what that sounds like to me? Hold on a second. That sounds like a way that they could have plausible deniability, so that he could be giving plausible information and legit info. But because of that, they could say, well, he's a mental patient, so he must not be telling the truth.
Well, it's not the fact that he was a mental patient. It's the fact that he knowingly bold-faced lied about it. He was straight up asked this point blank in his News Nation interview that they cut out of the interview, that he was straight up asked if he had any mental problems. And he said, no, I haven't. I don't have any mental problems. Right. But then later on, he talks about how he has PTSD. Well, PTSD is a mental problem. Right. And then the information comes up that he was locked up against his will into a psych ward. It's not the fact that he kept, to me personally, right? It's not the fact that he kept his clearance after being locked up in a psych ward. It's the fact that he lied about it to begin with, and he wasn't straightforward about it. And then all this information resurfaces, and then he comes out and says that this is an attack on him to discredit him. Well, if he would have been straightforward and straight up with it and said, yeah, I've suffered in the past, I've had some mental health issues, then it wouldn't have been a problem in my book. I mean, some people might have still had a problem with it because they're saying, well, how can you retain a clearance when you've been locked up in a mental institution? That's not my issue, because people have problems all the time, right? 'Cause people suffer from a lot of different issues and a lot of different problems and
Like,
mental
who
health,
doesn't have
depression.
mental?
A
Who
lot of
doesn't
people
have
do.
mental opportunities, right? They're not
Exactly.
problems; they're opportunities, bro.
Yeah, you rise above that, and you hopefully get help for your problems, and you can be rehabilitated. And that's not the issue for me. The issue for me is that he straight up lied about it several times to people that were asking him direct questions. And then it wasn't until that it came out, the police report came out through a FOIA request, that then he started saying that he has PTSD. So it's like this. You have the U.S. congressional testimony in the United States, which happened in July, and then, which was a joke. The Congress now have said that it's not. They were so embarrassed by it that they're never going to do another one again. And then you have the Mexican government coming out and wheeling out fake extraterrestrials that were proven fake all the way back in 2018, whenever Jaime Maussan first came out with this stuff. And was trying to push it.
Quick question on that. Your thoughts about whether he intentionally brought them in as frauds, or he thought that they were legit. So he's like, man, we got mummified alien bodies here. Let's check it out.
Jaime Maussan thinking that they're 100% real.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know how you could possibly think that when the DNA tests have come back and shown that they're Homo sapien, and the only people that say that they're not Homo sapien are the people that he pays off, right?
Well, hold on. When he first started, when you make it sound that way, clearly, but like, let's go back to the beginning. He's got this body, right? He's got these mummified bodies. Do you think that he found them that way and he thinks that they're legit? So he's taking them. He's like, let's get this disclosed, man. Let's show the world what we've got. Or in your opinion, do you think it was the opposite, or based upon your information?
I think that he or someone altered them, and then because it was shown that the joints were removed, that the fingers of the mummified supposed extraterrestrials were taken off, the two toes were taken off, and joints were placed in, and metal parts were placed in the neck. And you can see that in the X-ray of these beings. There's metal plates all over the body. So where did those metal plates come from? Yeah. And that's what makes me think that it was intentionally altered, or he directly done it, or he knew someone that done it, or it's that. I mean, I guess the grift could go so far as to someone creating these bodies, mixing in animal bones, mixing in real Peruvian deceased skeletons, and then with Maria having the real elongated skull on her, and then they planted it back in the ground and had Jaime come and discover it, or a group come and discover it. I guess it could go that far, but I think that he or someone that he known obviously faked it and mutilated the dead corpse of Peruvian ancient people and mixed it with animal bones and dead human carcasses. And that's a crime, right? That's a crime. You can't mess with dead human carcasses, right? Especially from the ancient Peruvian people, right? That's the big thing here. That's why the Peruvian government is so upset, is because they know that the bodies are fake, and they know that they've been altered with the Peruvian people's corpses.
No wonder it made mainstream news. No wonder.
Well, that's the other thing, though, too, is nobody is talking about this on mainstream television. I haven't seen any reports of Fox News talking about this. I haven't seen MSNBC talking about it. I haven't seen CNN talking about it on the actual television. Now, there's a bunch of reports and a bunch of articles online that you can find. You can find, the New York Post, the Huffington Post, and they're all putting it out there about the Mexican government doing it. But I haven't seen any radio news broadcast people bringing it up yet.
Well, and that would make sense. And then think about this also. if they once we do see real bodies, alien bodies, if there are any, and I absolutely believe we're not alone. I do over the see. Here's one thing too, Ryder. You got to realize, man, I've been doing this research on the ET phenomenon now for years, right? I mean, I've probably done more interviews than just about anybody out there with people that claim to have been abducted or had some type of experience or written a book or been an expert or researched the subject, right? I mean, I've interviewed so many different people that I've learned a lot, and it seems like the more I learn, the more I don't think I know. It's like, okay, because I'll get to the point where I'll be pretty convinced that there's space travelers out there, and then I'll go back to, oh, it's all MK Ultra, it's all us, and then I'll go back to, oh, there's no way, there's just too much data. You know what I mean? So I'm still not convinced either way, but I would say definitely more convinced that we're not alone and we have been visited and there is some type of influence, because whatever these being, but the ETs that I'm thinking of, these extraterrestrials, maybe they're so far above and beyond what most people can even comprehend. It's just like different levels of consciousness. So it'd be really difficult to, pin that being down. But then when you know people that have experiences with what some people refer to as the grays, like people personally, and then then for somebody to say, well, it's all MK Ultra stuff. It's not. There's some, now it doesn't necessarily mean they're space aliens, but they're not human. They're different. And it's not just a hypnotic session. I mean, studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, body language, the MK Ultra stuff and how they would fragment the brain and fraction the brain. There's something more to that puzzle there. And oftentimes it does seem that the ET explanation would be the most, how do I put it? Like Occam's razor, or the easiest to explain many of the different things would be the ET phenomenon. Your thoughts?
Well, you know where I stand on the extraterrestrial hypothesis,
Not 100%.
Rex, and I think that it's one giant, huge psychological operation. Have you seen Mirage Men, the documentary Mirage Men?
No.
Well, it's free on YouTube, and I highly implore anybody that's listening right now to watch Mirage Men on YouTube. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hour documentary, and it details how the extraterrestrial hypothesis really came to be. And it came from disinformation agents from within the government. And what happened was there was this gentleman that was living close to a military base. Hold on, I'm just trying to search for his name. Paul Benowitz. Paul Benowitz was living close to a military installation. He started seeing really strange things, strange craft, and then he put up a satellite to be able to try and intercept some of this radio signals that was going to this base to try and figure out what's going on. And then eventually he contacts the Air Force base, and then they put him in contact with a gentleman called Richard Doty. And Richard Doty's job was to cover up the activity that was going on at the Air Force Base. Real classified projects of advanced military technology. So what Richard Doty did was he fed Paul Benowitz a bunch of nonsense information about extraterrestrials. He said, oh, they're extraterrestrials, it's extraterrestrial craft. And then eventually it got to the point, Rex, to where the NSA literally hacked into Paul Benowitz's computer and started feeding him dis and misinformation about extraterrestrials, and that he thought that he was decoding from the Air Force Base. And then that's not the only thing. And then Paul Benowitz ended up going into psychosis around all this stuff. But that's not the only thing. He also did this with a gentleman called Bill Moore. that literally put the entire Roswell extraterrestrial hypothesis into the zeitgeist of the United States and of the world with his book in 1980. No one cared about Roswell up until that point. And this was all disinformation and misinformation given to Bill Moore from Richard Doty. And he wrote this entire book. And then he comes out at a UFO conference in 1989 and is telling all the entire conference how he scammed everyone and everyone's heckling him. That's literally where all of the information from Roswell and the extraterrestrial hypothesis came from disinformationalist Richard Doty that was paid by the Air Force to give out mis and disinformation to the community. He also got Linda Moulton Howe as well, and countless other people with disinformation and misinformation about extraterrestrials and UFOs to cover up the fact that military technology is being tested, and they're trying to not let people know about the advanced technology that they're working on. I highly implore anybody to watch that documentary Mirage Men, which is free on YouTube.
Well, so I think that that's very interesting. And I also say that Roswell is just one encounter that very well could be a military operation that was designed to put the ET phenomena under the subconscious of the world. There are plenty of people's experiences that they try to explain before that event. And one thing interesting about Roswell is after Roswell, just shortly after the Air Force started. So the timing was immaculate. The next month, the Air Force starts after Roswell. And I also find the timing perfect with the release of the UFO stuff at the New York Times. And then shortly after, you've got the public Space Force. Publicly, it's like a Space Force. So I get the timing, and I get the fact that the majority of sightings oftentimes are close to military bases, right? Where you've got these weird lights and stuff by military bases. There's just too many other experiences to say, well, this is how it started. Maybe the modern interpretation. But what do you say to the previous encounters where people might refer to them as angelic beings or demons, or just have a different mindset because they don't really know how to explain them? And then how would you explain looking at certain megalithic structures that have specific alignments with particular stars and the ancient teachings of the star people and many of the mythologies of the star people as well? Your thoughts?
Well, I have a different interpretation of what's going on here, and this is just my personal opinions and my personal thoughts. There's no proof or evidence behind anything that I'm going to say about this. I'm just trying to, make that clear. I think that the pyramids were already here. I think that they've been here before humans were ever here. I think that they just came along with the earth. And I think that it's possible that they were put there to create this mystery of wonder and imagination within the human being to try and figure out what they are, how they were built. And when you go back and you realize it's like it's really like the JFK assassination, right? There's so many different theories about how the pyramids were built, the pyramids of Giza and all of that. And I think that it's here to get our imagination going, trying to create different theories about what's going on, because there's so many different theories of what the pyramids actually are. Some people say that they're a giant power plant. Some people think that they were a weapon. Some people think that they're a Stargate, and then how they were built. They think that they were, that there was a ramp that was built around it. They gave the Egyptians the ability to, put the bricks and put it in alignment and all that. I think that it just came along with the planet. I think that it's here before any beings were ever here. But that's just my personal thoughts and my personal ideas surrounding the pyramids of Giza. Now, to your question and your thought about the people that are experiencing things before they were so-called extraterrestrials. Now, I don't believe in the physical extraterrestrial hypothesis. I don't believe that there are physical beings. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't believe that there aren't some kind of consciousness beings, that they're not some kind of spirit beings. Like, I 100% believe in that. I've had several experiences throughout my life that are completely unexplainable. I think that there are consciousness beings, which some would consider to be demons, spirits, and like in the beginning of this, it was the people were saying the fairies were abducting them, or goblins were abducting them. It wasn't UFOs, and now it's just changed into UFOs and extraterrestrials through the mythology and through the disinformation and the misinformation about physical extraterrestrials existing off of our planet. And I think that there is a lot of there's unexplainable things that happen all the time, Rex. That doesn't mean that we know what it is. I don't think that anybody knows what it is, and anybody that's telling you that they know what it is wrong. Right? I've experienced several things throughout my life, and we're trying to wrap our heads around something that's not meant to be explained, that we're not meant to know what it is. And that's where a lot of these theories and these explanations come from, is people wanting to figure out what happened to them, and then they go to somebody in the community, and then they're automatically fed the information that it must be extraterrestrials, it must be the Greys, you must have been abducted, you must have been experimented on, your semen must have been taken from you, your genetic material must have been taken. But that's what it is. If I were to go to anyone in this community, a regressionist or a self-proclaimed psychic or somebody like that's from this community, that's been steeped in all of this lore, and I told them about my experiences growing up, then they would, every single time, Rex, I guarantee you, they would say that it was gray extraterrestrials, and that I was abducted, and that I was experimented on when I was a kid, and that I was a part of a hybridization program, and that I have alien babies in space on a mothership that I need to take care of. And periodically they'll come and abduct me every once in a while and take me to the mothership so I can take care of my kids, my extraterrestrial hybridized kids. That's what it would be. I guarantee you, every time. And it's happened. There's been several people that has emailed me, because I've talked about some of my experiences on my channel, me being a young kid. And I think I even talked about them on your show, one of the first times that I was even on here, that whenever I was a child, I would be laying in bed and I would see beings come out of the walls, translucent beings come out of the walls. Right? Now, I don't care to know what that was. It doesn't matter to me. It happened, and anybody's explanation that I would tell them of what that was is going to be gray extraterrestrials, that they have the technology to phase in and out of walls to abduct you and experiment on you and take you up into their UFO craft. Right? But it's my experience. I don't need to have my experience.
Sounds like a mushroom trip in a haunted house to me.
Yeah, some Black Mirror stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't sound like gray aliens at all. Actually, no, like, here's what's interesting. And let me tell you something, Ryder, like, a great friend of mine, high level security clearance. I told you a bit about him before. He's had a lifetime of these things messing with him, or much of his life thus far. And he's not convinced they're aliens. He thinks they could be like interdimensional or something, is what he thinks. But he also says that they're physical. He says you can absolutely 100% grab them. Very, very interesting, whatever they are.
Yeah, and then there's that technology, supposedly, which there's no proof and no evidence for, but I think it's worth mentioning, the Cameleo technology, where the government has cloaking abilities, and they can literally be in your house and you not even know it. It's kind of like that movie, the Invisible Man, that came out on Netflix, where they have the suit that just renders them invisible. I mean, that's been reported for a long time. A gentleman that I know around Skinwalker Ranch talked about that kind of technology, and I've seen people around Skinwalker Ranch that has sort of that kind of get up about them. They have that kind of weird military suit. They're like all blacked out. He sent me a picture of them. It's really, really strange. Like they don't, their entire face is covered. Why they look like Black Ops soldiers on the property around Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, I think that a lot of the things that's going on at Skinwalker Ranch is government testing. It's a government testing facility, is what it is. I mean, they're shooting rockets up into the air, Rex. They're shooting rockets up in the air, and then they're bringing astronomers and UFO researchers out to look at it, and then they call it a UFO. Well, yeah, there's definitely something unidentified when you don't tell the people that you're bringing out to study it that you just shot rockets into the air. Of course, they're going to think it's a UFO, right? They're doing infield simulations out there. Like to me, it's a government testing facility to test weapons, to test new technology like the Chameleon technology, the invisible type of technology that's going on, rocket testing, balloon testing. They were also putting air balloons up into the sky. And then magically they just see a UFO as soon as they put an air balloon up in the sky. All of a sudden, UFOs just swarm around the air balloon.
Okay, so breakaway civilization, Younger Dryas event, pre-Younger Dryas, high technology, civilization goes underground, off Earth, and then they come back. Possible? Your thoughts? Could that explain some of this stuff? Like maybe even Skinwalker Ranch? Or do you think this latest, greatest, modern tech, maybe a little bit of a breakaway civilization because you're kind of talking defense contractors now, technology that's outside of the realms of certain bureaucracy, possibly?
Yeah, that was really the only interesting thing that came out of that U.S. congressional testimony was the talk about the special access programs above congressional oversight. That was the only thing that really sparked my interest. Now, that's nothing new. Catherine Austin Fitts has been talking about that for decades now, and she was the secretary to the Bush administration. She was talking about how money is diverted and taken out of legitimate programs that do have congressional oversight and taken and funneled into special access programs that have no congressional oversight, that are done by these private corporations, these private organizations like Raytheon and Bigelow Aerospace, and there's several of these. SRI International is a government contractor, right? But that was nothing new, but I found that really interesting. And that seemed like something that just kind of slipped through the U.S. congressional hearing that I don't think a lot of people put a lot of attention and focus on, was how the money is being taken from one project and then siphoned into what some people would call a black budget special access program, or controlled special access programs. There's levels to all of these, and the compartmentalization of all these programs make it to where you have to have a need to know about any of these programs, right? And that's what really makes the whole Roswell case, in my mind, like a governmental special access program. And the people that were there that witnessed the crash had no idea what that was, because they didn't have the need to know what that was, because that was a highly classified special access program, right? And that was something that I really enjoyed about the U.S. Congress, but the rest of it was a bunch of nonsense. Him talking about stories that he heard from other people that gave him stories, and then he's regurgitating that information without any proof or evidence. Now, the breakaway civilization thing is really interesting, but I have a different thought on that as well. There's this cargo cult that happened during Vietnam that was called John From. You can Google this and look this up. It was a cargo cult that started during Vietnam, that there were these United States soldiers that went out into the Congo and would deliver food and goods to people out there that literally had no attachment to the outside world. They'd never seen anything like this before. And an entire cult and religion was formed around these United States soldiers coming and bringing goods to this tribe in the Congo. And then they eventually started trying to duplicate their technology, their planes and their aircraft. They would make the aircraft out of like hay and sticks and leaves and everything. And that, bringing up that story to my point, is that things can be misinterpreted and mistaken. If you took an isolated group and put them on an island, and then they had never had any experiences with the outside world, they'd never seen anything like this before, and then all of a sudden someone that has it could be just a little tiny bit more advanced than them and come to them, they would think that you were gods. But you've been here on the planet forever. You just have a little bit more of advanced technology. And that's exactly what the John Frum cult thought that these US soldiers were. And they had shrines and they would do prayers for John Frum from the United States to come back. And they're still waiting for John Frum from the United States military soldier to come back and give them goods. They looked at him as a god. So really all it takes is someone not knowing what's going on, an isolated group of people, and then someone just a little bit more advanced coming, and then those people can mistake those just slightly more advanced civilization as extraterrestrial gods. And I think that that's where a lot of the mythology has actually came from, is people misinterpreting who these beings are and where they're from, like John Frum.
Well, and you could even say the teachings in Greek mythology of the fish people that come out and help the tribal people of Greece, basically, at the time. They're like, they were just heathens. They had no sense of order. And then the fish people showed them how to properly take care of themselves. Maybe that was, yeah, like you said, I don't necessarily think that they're, mermaids and mermen coming out and teaching them dolphin stuff. And like, yes, I understand.
Yeah, it could legitimately be someone on a boat that came to the island.
And yeah,
and they called them fish people.
Yeah,
because they came from the sea.
Because they did. Yeah, they came from the sea. They taught them some new technologies and different ways of civilization that might be considered a little bit more modern, and then they took off. So let me ask you, and this is I'm having a great conversation with you, and I really appreciate it. And one thing that I find interesting is you seem to kind of have a really strong stance now towards thinking, or at least towards portraying everything as disinformation in the extraterrestrial realm. So why are you so convinced that there is no possibility of being visited from a species from another planet?
Because there have been nothing but stories of extraterrestrials and visitations from beings from other planet. There hasn't been any proof or evidence, and any of the proof and any of the evidence has come out to be fake, just like these fake extraterrestrial bodies that are being wheeled out in front of the Mexican Congress and passed off as real extraterrestrial alien bodies. Right? It comes down to the need and the want to believe in something, and things have been so installed into the mythology of the community that it's very difficult to talk to people about this type of thing, because they want to believe that we're not the only species in the universe, which I have no proof and evidence that we are the only species in the universe. But if we are, what's so wrong with that? What's so bad with us being the only species and only beings in the universe? It doesn't change anything about my reality. I'm still here. I still have to live here. I'm still doing my day-to-day stuff. I'm still doing my show. You're still doing your show. What harm comes from finding out that we're the only beings in the universe? Nothing. Nothing changes. It's the exact same thing, right? So I guess it stems from and wanting to get down to the bottom of the truth, because when you get down to the bottom of the truth, there's no evidence for any of this stuff. There's no proof for any of this stuff. And a lot of the regurgitation has come from disinformational agents and misinformation agents directly from our government and UFO cults. UFO cults really started a lot of the new age belief systems and the thought movement of the community, and now it's just been regurgitated right back into the community, like the cult of I Am with Guy and Edna Ballard from the 30s. They created the Saint Germain story and the ascended masters, that Jesus and Saint Germain are ascended masters, and he was a fraudster. He got indicted on charges for telling people that he was going to drain a lake in California and mine it for gold, and he got indicted for charges in Chicago for fraud. And then his wife and his son also got indicted for mail fraud. Right? It's people creating stories, compounding upon those stories. And I've done a huge series on UFO cults on my channel. There's a playlist over there. I'm doing number 10 either today or tomorrow, which today is Thursday. I'm either going to do it tonight or tomorrow will be UFO Doomsday Cults Part 10. And when you research and you go back through all this stuff, you see that it's regurgitations upon regurgitations with no proof and evidence for the original thought or theory. And then it gets put into the zeitgeist and into the consciousness of everybody, and then everyone believes it, and then everyone propagates it, and everyone pushes it out there like it's real. They talk about these stories of like Saint Germain and Jesus and the 33 Galactic Federation of Light and Van Tassel in the early 50s that was channeling Ashtar. And then he came out and said that all the other people that were channeling Ashtar that he created was wrong and fake. And then Ashtar brought on a life of its own in the early 90s through the internet. And then they started propagating then they created a set list of rules of people to follow by that channel Ashtar to have their actual channeling seen as valid. It's the same thing over and over again, and predictions that never come true. Next week, the extraterrestrials are going to land and the United States is going to be destroyed by a natural disaster. Everyone needs to prepare. Get your food ready. It's just the same thing that's regurgitated over and over again, and it all stems from Christianity. Every single one of these UFO cults takes Christianity, molds it, and turns it into something different. They've all interpreted the Bible differently, and they all claim that Jesus was an extraterrestrial, that Buddha was an extraterrestrial, that Krishna was an extraterrestrial, that they're from Venus, that they're from Mars, and there's this hierarchical structure of beings. And they have all these great predictions of doomsday prophecies and 33 extraterrestrial ships landing. The Unarius Academy cult claimed that the UFO extraterrestrial ships were going to land in 2001. That never happened. The Seekers UFO cult claimed in 1954 that the Guardian extraterrestrial races was going to land in December 21st of 1954. That never happened. They pushed that date back to Christmas Eve of 1954. That date didn't happen. Then there was a psychologist that infiltrated into the cult named Leon Fetzinger that created the term cognitive dissonance from studying the cult and their psychology whenever their predictions didn't come to fruition. It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's a regurgitation of previously established beliefs that never came true, and then it's been compounded upon and slightly changed. And there's always something happening in this community, Rex. There's always some kind of external threat. There's always something going on. Russia is always planning a cyber attack. You always got to be prepared for some sort of natural disaster or something happening. The monetary system is going to collapse, and none of it ever happens. People have been talking about the exact same thing for decades and decades and decades. The regurgitations that I've heard since I've been doing this in the past 3 years has been the exact same thing. People don't have the memory capacity to see the regurgitation because it's information overload. This community is just as bad as the mainstream media. So it's information overload. It's the same thing over and over again. They hit you with the exact same stuff over and over again to make you forget about the things that they said before.
It's just wag the dog, cyclical events. So what you're talking about are maneuvers that not only the media can use, but the powers that be and organizations and institutions to keep people in that constant state of fear. However, with all of that being said, there are way too many experiences that people have had and way too many anomalies that we can't explain yet, that to discredit. Like, you're bringing up some great points about Roswell. You're bringing up some great points about the UFO cults and the mind control the programs that are used to keep people in that state. But you're one person, and there are tens of thousands of independent accounts that people have either experienced something or seen something that is out of the ordinary, and doesn't mean that it's extraterrestrial. It could be something more along the lines of a spiritual experience, or a weather balloon, or a government, secret black ops project. There's just way too many anomalies for me to say it's all fake. So I can understand and appreciate why you're saying that, and I'm glad you told me, and I understand, man, because you're right. It's always next week, dude. The end of the world is always tomorrow. We've got a product for that. We've got something available for you but look, it's good to be prepared, not scared, because I would rather be prepared than scared. And there are cyclical events that take place, but we're still here. We can still go spend $10 at the coffee shop to get, a 4-shot latte, and then you tip them $3 and you're out $10, and you're like, why the hell did I just do that again? I can't believe I keep doing that. It's like one of those horrible habits that I have. I'm like, dude, I drink way too much coffee. I need to I guess I've cut down on my coffee. But anyway, I get you, brother. I get you. Do I agree?
And that's not me saying that everything is fakes and frauds either. Like I was mentioning earlier, I believe that there's a consciousness aspect to this. I mean, I got into this whole thing because of spirituality and talking about how to use your thought process and to help you get the things that you want in your life. I'm not saying that there's not a consciousness phenomenon. I think that there 100% is a consciousness phenomenon. I mean, I've studied remote viewing. I even came on and gave you a presentation about my studies and my findings of the government remote viewing program. I've had all of the remote viewers on my show from the DIA and Army Intelligence Stargate Project. It's not that I don't believe in certain things. I do believe that there's a consciousness phenomenon, because consciousness is important, and I think that we're all connected on a certain level. I'm just saying that the fear propaganda from this community seems to be the only thing. It's like keeping people on the hook over and over and over again, right? In this exact same way with these cults, right? The Heaven's Gate cult with Marshall Applewhite. He told his followers to go out into the middle of the woods, light a fire, look up at the sky, hit a tuning fork above their head to tune into the frequencies of the UFO craft, and hopefully a craft would come down and rapture them up into the next evolutionary level above human, where they would be transformed into an extraterrestrial, right? Whoa. And then he kept those people on the hook with that until he no longer could, and then he had to change his ideology of the cult into a consciousness thing. And now he's toward the end of the cult, after Bonnie Nettles died in 1985 from brain cancer, he had to switch the ideologies and the thought process of the cult to be a consciousness thing and a spiritual thing. Then he said, well, when the physical body dies, then you ascend into the next level above human. But before that, it was all a physical thing. But I know that we have to wrap up here soon, but the thing that is getting the next thing that's going to start happening in my eyes, which has already happened, is that people are going to start putting the doomsday event so far into the future that by the time it happens, it's no longer going to matter, and people are going to forget about it. And then there's not going to be any retaliation to the person that made their original claim. Like Rael from the Raelian cult, that's still a cult today, said back in 1974 that the Elohim extraterrestrials was going to land on the earth in 1935. and that he had to build a landing center for with his followers for the extraterrestrial Elohim to come and land, right? And by the time 2035 comes along, Rex, he's going to be dead. He's already like 85 years old. He's not going to have any repercussions whenever the prediction doesn't come true. Two, people have already forgotten about it. People are no longer going to care. Three, some of the people that believed in it is probably going to be dead as well. Right. So there's no repercussions for that. And that's different than people saying, oh, well, the end of the world is going to happen next year. Or the extraterrestrials are going to land in 2025. You know, the new technologies are going to be revealed. Free energy devices are going to be revealed. Med beds are going to be revealed in 2025. Right, which is the exact same thing with the QAnon cult. That was the exact same thing. And you can replace Trump and JFK Jr. from the QAnon cult with Guy and Edna Ballard from the cult of I Am, and you almost have the exact same thing, just earlier in the 30s.
There's actually books you can read on cults, right? Like on how they are designed, how they break the will of people and kind of start them over. They all put them into a certain group. They think the same things. They do the same things. They wear the same clothes. It's kind of like the military. But I want to talk to you for another hour, brother, but I got a boogie. So I got to say thank you so much. And you're obviously on YouTube. And where else are you? Where else can we find your stuff?
You can find me on Rockfin, Odysee, Rumble, any of the podcast platforms, and I'm also on pilled.net. And thanks so much. And if you want to reach out to me personally on Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod and Twitter at Raised by Giants 8. Thanks so much, Rex, for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation, and it just proves that two people that have two opposing views of what's happening can come together and have a really great conversation. And this needs to happen more and more, not just shun people and call people names that have different opinions and different ideas of what's happening, right? There's too much of that. There's too much trolling going on, and we need to come together and mix and mash all of our ideas together to come to a solid understanding. Just because I disagree with the things that you say doesn't mean that I hate you. Right. But that's the type of reality that we've created. If someone has an opposing view or opposing idea, we automatically just hate them. We cut them out of our life. We block them. We delete them. We just exit them out of our reality. And that's not the way that it should be done. In this conversation right here just proves that. Thanks so much, Rex.
Oh, yeah, man. Absolutely. You know, I've got plenty of friends that I disagree with on a regular basis. Actually, some of my best friends, we have very opposing views. But you know what? The core values are the same. And you said something that I find very, very important. And that's why I'm having you on this program, is because you're looking for the truth too. And you want to share the truth with the world. And I believe that's why you're as passionate about this, because you've seen so much disinformation. You've seen so much BS. You're like, wake up, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Y'all need to wake up because you're being hoodwinked. And that's cool, man. That's honorable. And on that note, folks, hope you have a beautiful day and pick up JFK X. This is the best documentary yet on the JFK conspiracy. It's available for like $2. I mean, anyway, get it. It's awesome. It's got a completely new, fresh approach to that conspiracy where they've taken the old footage and they've turned it into about as close to 4K as you're going to get. And you can see it in a completely different light. And it's going to blow your minds, folks. Pick it up, JFK X. And Ryder, be the change you want to see, man.
Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate you.
Cheers. Oh, yeah. And just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean I'm wrong either.